And I like what you said, like your time is valuable. And when you look at your earning power, like if you take a look at that next to like what you're actually paying for it, it's usually a small percentage of what you would normally earn in that time you're spending to do that. So yeah, absolutely big proponent of, delegating out those tasks.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to episode 8 of Disrupt the Everyday. Today we're joined by Liz Bigger, author, speaker, and burnout coach. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to avoid burnout and staying motivated. Thanks for joining us, Liz.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here. So glad to be on today. And thank you guys so much for having me.
Yes. And so what we usually do to start is ask, who is Liz Bigger?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I say that because I've actually had to do quite a bit of digging around to figure that out, in the last several years. But basically today, like you said, I'm author, speaker, burnout coach, but I'm also a single mom, and I'm a mom of a fur baby. And, they factor in quite a bit. They're, part of my highest priority level. But basically, I've had several different iterations in my life. I started out in sales in my 20s, and then I married a military officer, and I, got moved around. So I had to find a new career, and we moved to Korea, which, I decided to get my MBA over there remotely because there was nothing else to do. I couldn't seem to get a job. As soon as I signed up for my degree, I got a job with the government. So I was super duper busy, but I came back with a career in the government and an MBA, and worked with the government for a little bit, several years later. And then I decided to have a baby. And then I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. And I decided when he was about 3 that I wanted to start my own business. I've always, had the entrepreneurial spirit, which is why I really like working with entrepreneurs and business owners, managers and leaders. And I had a business. It was pretty successful. It was a pretty successful business, but I suffered from burnout. I ended up getting so sick with plantar fasciitis and a thing called leaky gut syndrome, which, is a whole nother podcast, that I had to shut it down, like to get well. And as soon as I was able to heal, it took a couple of years for me to start getting well, with a whole lifestyle overhaul and change of pretty much everything. I just was on fire. I wanted to help people, and now it's my mission to help as many people as I can to avoid and eliminate burnout so that they don't get to that place where they have to shut down their business just to heal, just to catch it before that happens. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Great. So I am really excited to actually talk about burnout, which I guess is a little cliche, excited to talk about it. But the reality is, I think that's where a lot of us are right now. So my first question, I guess, would be, how do you describe burnout when talking with clients?
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that a lot of people don't realize they're in burnout because it sneaks up on you, so some of the major, I call them symptoms, but that sounds kind of like a medical term, but it's really just like things that are usually happening with you that you can maybe identify that you have burnout going on is, if you're having like a lack of motivation, like you just can't seem to get going in the morning, like you're used to wake up and you just pop out of bed and go do whatever. And now you're like hitting the snooze like 5 times before you get out of bed. So a lack of motivation, a lack of focus. So just like, and especially right now with like we were talking about a little earlier, everything being in our house, like it's so easy to get distracted by everything. I know for me, I work at home. I've been working at home for a long time, but I go downstairs and I see 5 things that I could possibly go do, but I have to stay focused. I have to get back to, back upstairs, get to work in my office and stay focused. And so, we start getting distracted. Those things that used to not distract us and pull us away from our, what we're trying to work on starts to really distract us. And we start getting really overwhelmed. So when we start trying to split our focus that many directions, we start feeling really overwhelmed. Like we work hard all day long and you go to bed at night, you're exhausted and you're like, what did I actually accomplish today? Like it just doesn't seem to actually get anything accomplished. And you really want to get back to the way you were. Like you just keep thinking like it's going to pass. Like at some point I'm going to get a good night's sleep and then tomorrow it'll be different. And you keep telling yourself that every single day and it just doesn't seem to get any better. In fact, if anything, it gets worse. So those are really a lot of, and irritability. That's one other one that I've, noticed a lot. Like you're snappy, you're snapping at people that you don't normally snap at, things that don't bother you normally or, shouldn't bother you are irritating you. And, you just get really irritable in that place too. So those are kind of some of the main symptoms of burnout. And so if people are experiencing those symptoms, it's a good idea to take a look at that and dig a little deeper and see like, am I in burnout? Like, have I been doing the same monotonous task over and over again? And I think it happens a lot to us too, when things are kind of forced upon us, like in this time of the pandemic and, and even life in general, things get forced on us. Like we didn't ask for certain changes, like if you get a change at work, get given a new assignment and it's not really something that you were looking to do and you're not really digging it, or, having to stay home now all the time and having to work from home and having our kids at home doing virtual school. And I mean, it's just a lot of things that we didn't ask for, we didn't prepare for, and now we're living it, right? So that's pretty much, when people come to me, that's usually the symptoms that are going on with burnout. That's normally how I would describe burnout.
And how do you walk through, I guess, the process with your clients when you guys have realized, okay, burnout is the issue? How do you walk through to, I guess, past that?
Oh yeah, that's such a great question. So I try to meet my clients where they are. So like I have like an hour long strategy session usually before, like to identify what's going on with them. And usually in that strategy session, we'll find like the top couple of things that are really bothering them. And then I actually developed a program because it's so interesting. The way burnout works is that you can address and that's what we think too, when we're in that place, we think, okay, I just need to manage my time better. I just need to like hire more people at work, or, these people that work for me need to just do what I say, I need to improve my communication. And yes, all those things might be, the case. They might be something that you need to work on. But burnout is a lot deeper. Usually, the first phase that I work with my clients and walk through my clients with is really getting back to understanding and realizing who they are, outside of work. Because work can take, especially when we're working from home, and some of us are working 24/7, who they are outside of work, remembering their purpose and their passions and their why. Why did they sign up for this job? Why do they get up in the morning? What are their priorities? What are they actually getting out of bed for? And really walk them through that. And I also really like to, I like to work with them on boundaries, setting real clear boundaries throughout the day, because a lot of people, a lot of my clients, they tell me all the time, just yeah, I get up in the morning, I make some coffee, I check my email. I'm like, no, do not check your email while you drink your coffee. That's your time, set a time in the morning that your workday starts, set a time in the afternoon or evening when your workday ends. And I mean, obviously, things come through and you have to jump on them. If you get an emergency email, you have to maybe respond to that. But for the most part, start your day when your day starts, when your boundary says it starts, and end your day when your boundary says it ends. And the rest of that time is for you. I love rituals. I call it rituals, but you can call it formulas or whatever you want to call it. But basically get up in the morning and have a morning ritual, a morning formula that you do. Get up, drink your coffee, sit down, wake up, set your intentions for the day, think about the day, what is coming, remember who you are, what are you bringing to the day. Try to maintain that as you go through the day, maintain your, purpose and passions and intentions throughout the day. And then in the afternoon or evening, when your day ends, mark that point, with a ritual, okay, my day has ended. And now, and it can be, some people have problems with eating. So it could be having a snack. It can be taking a walk. It can be, just something to kind of signal to yourself that your day has now ended. Your work day is now ended. And now you're shifting. And for me, I shift into mommy mode at that point. So then it's I got to figure out what's for dinner, and I got to figure out, we eat dinner together, my son and I. And that's something else that I really stress. I get eyeball to eyeball with my son every night. We sit at the table and I get a good look at him and I get a good feel for what's going on with him because, he's a 13-year-old boy and he's not going to say, hey, mom, I need more attention, or hey, mom, I need whatever, so I make sure I get eyeball to eyeball with him. But that's when I shift into that mode, right? And then have a nighttime ritual before I go to bed at night. I have to wind down, I can't just go straight from like checking my email or, playing on, a video game to laying down and going to sleep. Like it just is not going to work that way. So, obviously I do the wash my face, brush my teeth, do all that, stuff you got to do. But I also like sometimes I'll journal, sometimes I'll do a short meditation. I like to read. Sometimes I'll read for just about 10 minutes just to get me nice and calm. And I don't read exciting stuff, I usually read self-help stuff because I love self-help stuff. And it's not boring, but it's not exciting either. So it doesn't like jazz me up again and keep me from sleeping. But that's, so important. So those couple of 3 rituals that we can put into our day, can really, really help keep you out of burnout, because it just really marks the day and it doesn't feel like the day just snowballs and avalanches on you, right? So, and then I also have a lifestyle piece that I like to talk to my clients about, because a lot of times when we get so busy, the first thing to go is the habits that we know are really good for us, like drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, eating enough nutrition, and I'm guilty, so guilty. Like I'll get busy and I'll be like, ooh, that bag of chips looks good, and that'll be my lunch. And like, no, that's like terrible for me to do in the long haul. Like I can do that every once in a while, but day to day, like that is just a killer. Because and also if I'm not getting enough sleep, because when I am tired, I will make poor choices. I will choose the wrong foods. I will want the comfort foods. And, that, goes into weight gain and, just food actually controls the mood more than people realize. So if you're not eating good food, like your mood is going to be suspect. It's not going to be good. So we go into that sort of thing. A little bit about exercise. I am not a fitness trainer by any stretch. I have no training in that, but there's such a need to move the body. Like there's a need to move the body. So even if it's just walking 20 minutes a day. So I work with them, what can they fit into their already busy day that's doable. And that's the biggest thing is like, I really want to work with my clients, meet them where they are and find things that are actually doable for them to do that they can put into their day and maintain and sustain. Because that's, change isn't good if you can't sustain it. It doesn't make any difference if you can't sustain it. And then at the end, like the irritability factor, I really like to talk with my clients about their relationships and how their relationships are going. And that everyone thinks I'm talking about like at home, but it can also be at work. Your subordinates, your coworkers, like, talking a little bit about communication styles and active listening and, really getting on the level of the person you're talking to, realizing what they are bringing to the table. And as far as leaders go, like really getting to know their staff and, who works with them, because it's amazing the change in a culture of a workplace when the leader takes an interest. And if who's getting divorced and whose dog just died and you know what I mean? Like if you can get involved in that level, that creates such a culture and it becomes more of a team feeling. And they're more likely to try to understand what you're asking them to do and B, actually do what you're asking them to do. It's not just like sending down the messages from on high and then expecting everyone to just act accordingly and do what they're supposed to do. It's actually like, not getting in there and doing their job, but like getting down in there and like getting to know who's working for the company, at some level. So yeah, so we talk a little bit about that kind of stuff and those kind of things that they can do to improve their relationships. And it really helps their irritability. When you are feeling irritable and you come at someone who's irritating you from a place of curiosity versus, man, this person's just really irritating me, was like more of a self-centered place of like, I wish they would just stop talking, you're more like, oh, that's curious. Like, I wonder what's going on with them. And then you ask the question and then you listen, actively listen to communicate, to understand versus just to get them to stop talking to you. Say whatever you need to get them to toddle away. So yeah, so that's pretty much, that's a lot about how we walk through it together.
Now, Since you mentioned leaders specifically, is there any advice you offer just in terms of safeguards to make sure that they avoid burnout, or even just a process to do like a self check-in to make sure that they're not getting to that state?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is super important. Yeah, so that kind of goes along with that, like sort of the end. And it's the program actually has things built in, like kind of checklists and things. So as they are um, building these routines into their daily schedule, basically just to notice, like, am I feeling lack of focus again? Am I feeling, and it, like, when you're off track, right? Like, so like once they get it, this, on a good track with doing these daily routines and rituals, and really paying attention to them, how they're doing, they know when they get off track. And so it's basically just kind of a mental internal checklist of just, oh yeah, I've been really frustrated lately, or yeah, I've been really feeling really irritable lately. Let me check and see, how am I doing with the rituals and the things that that I have put in place to keep me out of burnout. So to get me out, but if you keep doing them, that is what keeps you out of burnout. So you keep doing them, they're sustainable, hopefully. And if you're falling off in some area, then, that's just the sign to get back and make sure you start doing that part of it, whatever. So if you stop doing the morning routine, you started checking your email during coffee again, like, oh, okay, I need to stop that. So really that's just maintaining the program really is what keeps you from getting back into it.
Okay. When I was looking through your website, I sort of just did some self-reflection and was thinking, there were times when I was working in my field that I felt burnout. There were also times when I was on maternity leave at home when I felt burnt out, right? And now, working from home and, in a different line of work, same thing. So I think it's important, and I'm sure you can speak to it, that burnout looks different for many people. You don't have to be in corporate, out and about, and to validate the fact that you feel burnt out. You could also be a stay-at-home mom and feel those same symptoms, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And, I, on some of the copy that I put out, like, and that's, it's like, I like entrepreneurs, leaders, and busy people. Like, who is busier than a new mom? Like, I don't know anyone that's busier than a new mom. Cause I know, I was burnout when I had my son. My husband was actually deployed in Iraq. And so I was the only one, like, I had moved away from my family. So I really didn't even have a support system. And yeah, so burnout is a real thing for all kinds of people coming from every different angle. And yeah, and this program actually works for everyone, like I say, entrepreneurs and leaders, and because that's just really who I've been working with. But yeah, it actually, it really, and that's the thing, like I said, the symptoms are similar, but the situation that causes the symptoms can be very widely different. The symptoms seem the same. And actually this program that I created would work for everyone too. It's not, like I said, it's not like you need to hire more people, you need to manage your time better. Yeah, you may need to do some of that, but it's really like the internal stuff that needs to be looked at and checked in on and maybe tweaked and worked on. I really try to work with my clients, and I try to coach them. I try to teach them to coach themselves, and I've heard it said several times recently. And, I don't want to work with people for years. I don't. So when I work with them and we work on the motivation, it's really what I found. The thing about motivation is action breeds motivation. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but the biggest thing about getting motivated is if you can get motivated to do anything, like that will get you in motion. And once you get in motion, you have a lot better chance of actually being motivated to do the thing that you're procrastinating on or just completely unmotivated to do or whatever. So, I try to tell my clients, I'm like, just give yourself some grace. Like say you want to, you need to write a brief for your work, right? And you just really don't want to, and you're not motivated. You've written these briefs 100 times and you're just over it. It's monotonous at this point. And, if you can get up and do anything. So just get up and get yourself in your office. And I trick myself. I teach my clients to trick myself. I'm like, if you could just get up, get in your office. Getting off the couch is really the hardest part, or off the wherever you're at, like out of the break room or, whatever. If you could just actually get to your office or get to wherever it is you need to do this work, and tell yourself, this is what I tell myself, just tell yourself, I'm going to do this for 15 minutes. I'm just going to work on it for 15 minutes. And then I'm going to go do something else, and then I'll get a cup of coffee, or then I'll get a whatever. And what I found is if you can just get yourself in motion, and then you get in front of your computer and you open up whatever needs to be opened up, because that's really what seems to be the hardest thing to do, is to open up the right file and to like really get in there and start looking at it. And if you start working on it, 15 minutes flies by, but you're already working on it. So you're like, I can do another 15 minutes. I can do another half an hour. I could do another, whatever, or I can finish it, And if you really cannot get yourself even to get up in your office to open up the file folders, I do this to myself all the time. I'm like, I think of something fun I want to do in my office, like something creative. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I'll go work on that. And once I get done with that, then I'm like, I'm already in my office. Computer's already open. I'm like, yeah, I can pull that up and work. You know what I mean? I trick myself. It's like, just get yourself moving. And, there's a lot of schools of thought out there too, that, movement is also a really good way to get motivated. So if you don't want to work on the brief or whatever it is you're doing, go walk around the block, just get moving. Just go walk around the block. And I find usually when I'm walking around the block, or my clients just tell me the same thing, like things start coming to them like, oh yeah, I could put that in the brief, or I could do this, or I could do that. And by the time you get done with your walk, you're kind of jazzed up. You're like, oh yeah, okay, I got that. And now I know what I'm going to put in the brief. And now I just want to get it down, I want to get it on paper and get it going, So the biggest thing about motivation is just getting emotion, has been my experience. So.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like for me, my biggest thing right now is still getting up every morning to have my workout. It may not be as intense every day, what have you, but it's like, okay, I know that if I can still do that, I'm still like in good shape. And I don't mean physically, I mean mentally, right? Like I know that as soon as I stop that and press snooze, right? Because it's setting you up. But also the self-talk. Like yesterday I sent my best friends a text. I'm like, I'm not feeling motivated today. Like my motivation is really diminishing, right? And I get like what I've done on those days is just really make my to-do list, like really shrink it. So you want to still feel, I guess, that you're getting things accomplished, but before where it would be 10 different things and projects and all that, like yesterday was just a few things and it was very basic. And I say like, those are coasting days, right? We're just getting the basics done. But then again, now the next day comes and it's like, okay, what can I do different today? I didn't get this stuff done. You don't want to fall behind either, right? But like you said, giving yourself some grace to
absolutely
just get
yes. And I love that tip. That's a great tip. Yeah. So just, shrink it. But any sort of accomplishment, like I said, it provides that movement. It provides that motion. So like, if you could just get up and do the dishes, like you're up and you've accomplished something, and that somehow just seems to provide some, some motion to get you moving into the next thing. And I'm that way too. Some days I get up and I get like 100 things done. And some days I get up and I'm like, it's the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum. And yeah. And that's something else. It's a mindset thing too. I like what you said about falling behind. And we really have to realize that unless this is what I, talk to my clients with, unless there's a deadline, like you're really not falling behind. Like we hold ourselves to such a high standard, especially, in successful leaders in business and in life in general, it could be anybody, but a lot of times we hold ourselves to such high standards that, all these bars that we've set, and they're not really a deadline. We're not really falling behind. Like check and see, are you really actually falling behind? Or are you just like not meeting some bar that you set for yourself? And if it's just a bar you set for yourself, and I'm not saying that's not good, you should definitely set high standards for yourself. But like you said, give yourself some grace, and realize, am I actually falling behind? And prioritize, like, leaders know that all the time, like that quadrant, I forget who wrote the book, but the stuff that's like super on fire and in your face, like obviously you have to work on that, but then, if you don't get all the way to that back burner stuff, each day, that's okay too. And give yourself some grace.
You wrote on your, I believe it was website or maybe Facebook, only put your top 3 priorities on your to-do list in regards to the motivation piece. And it popped up to me. I think it was an older one, but I was like, it's so true. And going back to that list, right? Like sometimes it's just the first 3. So I like that.
Yeah. And the other piece too, I think when you look at that, when your to-do list is too long and you're not getting those things done, it really hurts the motivation to have those same things on your to-do list day after day after day.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, I'm nodding my head. Yes. Well, and as you were saying that too, is another thing that I like to work on too, that we don't do, and we don't do it as parents, and we don't do it as, leaders and owners, and especially entrepreneurs. Something that I work on with my clients is the delegation. Delegation is absolutely huge for this. Like any of these minute tasks that, we think we have to do because we do them better than, and I was talking to one of my clients the other day, he's the manager of a warehouse. He's in logistics. And he was telling me, he's just like, well, but I can do that task and I can do it better and I can do it faster. And I'm like, yeah, because you've never let anyone else do it. Like that's the hard part about delegation is like, yes, you can delegate it, but they're not going to instantly do well with it. Right. So you have to give it some time, and as a manager, as a leader, you have to step out of that doing role and actually give these tasks to other people to accomplish them, because your job is to be looking at strategy and to be looking at the trajectory and to be improving processes and like making sure that you're hitting goals. And if there's tasks that are on your calendar that are monotonous and can be done by someone else, get them off your to-do list, like clear them out. Like, and I'm the worst, especially at home. That's my biggest thing. Cause it's all kind of clumped together now with the work and the home and everything. And so like, I've just recently started, and my son actually really loves it. Like he feels like, he's taken ownership of the house now. Cause I'm like, he has chores and he's expected to do them, and he's expected to do them well. And I don't enjoy like having to go check it. And the same thing, I can do it faster. I can do it better, and that was kind of my mindset. But there's someone in my house who's perfectly capable, who's doing nothing but playing Xbox. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely. I'm going to give those minutia tasks to him, and he needs to learn how to do them. And it's the same thing in the business setting, like you need to be prepping those underlings and teaching them how to do these tasks. And yes, you have to check on them and know they're not going to do it well right away. And it's going to take a little time, but it gets it off your calendar. And at some point it will be done well, and it will be done quickly, and it's off your calendar. So it's a little extra work, right then maybe, but it evens out and gets it off your to-do list. So that's a big one too. Those to-do lists are killers. I have a friend of mine, she calls it a to-da list. Like she writes it down, and whenever she does something, she checks off, she goes, ta-da. I was like, oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, instead of like to-do.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
No, that's cool. And the thing too, I found that worked really well is really focusing on delegating some of those really, really small tasks, like even the things that, for example, like some administrative work that you just do it because you've just always done it. Even if someone can do it 70% as well and you have to check on it after, at least you haven't had to do it. Like,
exactly.
Say if it's paperwork that's going to take you an hour to do, but you may, if you check it and there's a problem on it that you have to fix, you're spending 15 minutes versus an hour, and eventually it's going to turn into, you don't have to touch that at all. Like starting with those smaller things and delegating those smaller things. I think even like you mentioned with, assigning some chores or jobs. One of the things with one of our kids that they're doing right now is vacuuming. So he's taking over vacuuming, which again, we could do a better job of it. But now if I have to come behind him and just vacuum up a small area where he missed something, I didn't have to vacuum that whole room.
Exactly. And at some point they will start doing it as fast and as well as you probably are really close to it. And so like in the beginning, it takes a little extra diligence on your part, but the payoff is that it's off your calendar. And like you said, you don't have to spend that hour doing it that normally you would have.
Exactly. And it's funny because I look at it as like, yeah, we're running a corporation here. It's the Hamilton Family Corporation, and we're going to delegate, right? And it's so true, like you said, about taking ownership. So yes, at the beginning, teaching them how to fold laundry, but it's the same. You look at it in a household or an office setting, they're, you're working for something, right? And you're putting in some time, and it's going to really end up benefiting you in the long run, and the business, what you're trying to do, right? So it actually benefits all of us, that I don't have to take my whole day running around and doing all these, tasks around the house, right? And it teaches them in the long run. So I'm a very big advocate of delegating. And it's something that I know has helped me, because at first when I was home, I'm like, oh, I can do it all because I'm home. And then I realized, no, 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 no. It's actually backfiring, because then I had one say, but you can do it. And then I was like, no, actually I can, but I'm not going to. Right. So it's
Exactly.
just, yeah, it's all, fine tuning, but it works out in the long run.
It absolutely does. Yes. And that's part of what contributed to my burnout when I got so sick with my business, because I actually had a business in town. I wasn't working at home at that point, and I had a like a commercial location, and I had to go to the commercial location. And I transitioned into being an entrepreneur from being a stay-at-home mom. And so I had been doing everything at the house, and that was my job. And then I started this business, and I still had it in my head that both were my complete responsibility. And I basically just ran myself into the dirt. My son was too little at that point. He was only like 3 to really do it, but I could have asked my ex-husband to do stuff, and I didn't. So, that was on me. But so these are like, and almost all of the stuff that I work on with my clients are things that I learned because I went through it.
Usually how it goes, right?
Right.
But it's the
Absolutely.
best people to learn from. So for sure.
Well, and I think the other thing too is that your time is valuable. So if you can, even if you can offload some of those home tasks, like if you have to bring in somebody to clean, and it's, you can get a reasonable, you can do it at a reasonable cost, you're getting that time back. So you can either just take that time to, basically not have to do that, or invest that time in your kids or your family, what have you. And I think that's that's something that mentally is challenging for a lot of people to get over. But any of those tasks, like right now, people are, I've heard this before, where people say they want to go get their own groceries. But now, we were at the point where we couldn't for a while. You had to either do the curbside pickup, or so people were leveraging that a lot more and realizing, hey, this is great. I I know this is something I could do on my own, but now, this saves me this much time. It's worth, I don't even know if there's a cost to that, because we haven't really leveraged that. But if there's a cost to it, that's something that that's, something I would definitely like to offset, or laundry, things like that. Some of the smaller stuff, if you
Mhm.
can, bringing somebody in to do that, it can be valuable just to free up that time.
That is so true. And I like what you said, like your time is valuable. And when you look at your earning power, like if you take a look at that next to like what you're actually paying for it, it's usually a small percentage of what you would normally earn in that time you're spending to do that. So yeah, absolutely big proponent of, delegating out those tasks. And as an entrepreneur, like there's a lot of these, I love it. Like there's all these organizations that are popping up to do things for us entrepreneurs. There's like all these virtual assistants. There's, you can find people to do some of your media work, Fiverr, Upwork. It's just, yeah. And I'm like that. I like that because I like the creative stuff, and I am kind of a control freak when it comes to like, especially copy. I like to write it all myself. I'm a writer. I love to write. But at the same time, like I have a guy who puts stuff up on my website for me. I mean, I write it, but he puts it up there because the time it takes for me to upload it onto my website is ridiculous compared to, he can get it done in like half an hour.
Right.
And I'm going to take like 2 hours because it's not a skill set that I'm great with. So absolutely, and there's just a lot of places for us to, get that off of our to-do list for sure.
Yeah, and that's one thing I found valuable as well, is finding people who can do that same task and maybe do it better and do it cheaper. One of my previous employers, there was this form that I had to complete, and it took upon like hours upon hours every month to do this form, because the administrative piece wasn't my strong point. So, I basically, the way I was able to get somebody to help me out with this, I showed my boss, I'm like, this is how long it takes me to do this form, and this is how much you pay me on an hourly basis. You can get someone to do this for minimum wage. They could probably actually do it better than me. And so we were able to, I was able to get approval for that to hire somebody to help with some of those tasks.
Exactly. That is a perfect example. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And that kind of thing, like just having that awareness is what a lot of people like, especially when you're in that place of burnout and overwhelm. Like you're just basically rolling through the motions every day. You're just putting one foot in front of the other. And it takes usually like an outside person to like point out like and have you see like exactly where it is that you could be delegating or getting things off of your to-do list in order to save you and your time to do the more managerial, higher arching, overarching type duties, which is actually what you're supposed to be doing. So absolutely.
So I want to switch gears to finish the conversation here. Something that stood out on your website was an identity statement. So I had never seen it, and it really struck my interest. So I want to finish off by talking about what that is, how to write it, and everything else.
Yeah, I found that, this is one of the first things I work on with my clients when we first start working together. And I found it to be so useful because we get so caught up in what we do every day. Like we forget who we are, like just as people. We forget where we came from. We forget the lessons we know, the wisdom we have. And I like to, it's basically a worksheet that I do with them. And it includes things like personality traits, physical attributes, aspirations, like what are you actually aspiring to? Are you trying to change lives? Not just like I need to make a paycheck to eat. It's like, what are you aspiring to? Are you aspiring to disseminate wisdom? Are you aspiring to change lives? Are you aspiring to, make a difference in the world? Like what is it? Really helps people remember their why too. Like, why are they doing what they do every day? And basically I have them fill out just a form, and then you turn it into a series of I am statements. So, basically, and I like it, usually becomes like a morning affirmation type thing. It's just like, I am strong, I am confident, I am capable, I am, those kinds of statements. And, and I am a spiritual being, I am, just those kinds of things. And so I like to have them write that out in like a series of I am statements. Some people are Christian, so they're like, I am a Christian woman, I am a Christian man, I am, a child of God. Like, and if you're not Christian, that's fine too. But like those kinds of things that people need to remember about themselves. And I tell them to keep it on their desk. And some people have laminated, some of my clients have laminated it, and they keep it on their desk. And so, and part of like their morning rituals, like they sit down and you read the statement, and then you remember like, who are you? Like, who are you bringing into this day? And it's been really helpful to keep them like focused and bringing the energy that they need to bring into the day, bringing that, staying in that go-getter place. You know what I mean? Because especially when you start a business and it's really exciting in the beginning, like you start a business and you're like, oh, so exciting. Or you start a new job and you're like, oh, so exciting. Like I'm going to hit these goals. I'm going to smash them. I'm going to run this organization so well. And, you get really excited and jazzed up and you smash the goals and you hit all the targets and you're like really jamming. And then you've been doing it for, however long, 10 years. And you're just kind of like, smashing targets. Yeah, I'm going to run this company. It's just, you need something to remind you like who you are in a day. And it also helps you remember that you are not your work, because that's something else that we get confused about too. If things don't go well at work, we tend to just have a whole complete bad day, but if you remember that, you're all these things that don't have anything to do with your work, then you're going to, yep, I had that meeting didn't go well. Yeah. So got to let that go, but I'm going to move on into the next part of my day. And I'm not taking that with me. You know what I mean? That was just one meeting. That wasn't me. That doesn't, you know what I mean? It's not me. So that really helps a lot too.
I love that.
Now, in terms of your program and, everything that you're working on your website, do you want to tell us where we can find that and, kind of an overview of how the program itself works?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my website is lizbigger.com. So if you want to find me there, and I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And my handle on all three of those is Liz Bigger Coaching. And my program, the way it works is normally when clients find me, we schedule a strategy session, which is about an hour long. And we just kind of, get together and talk about like what's going on with them, what's going on with me, make sure we're a good fit, and see if they're, in that place of burnout and looking for a solution. And then my program is about 3 months long. And we meet once a week. It's kind of an intensive once a week program. So we meet once a week for about 90 days. And usually by the end of 90 days, like they've got the program pretty well. They've got, like I said, the different things that we institute into their daily routine. We've got those pretty well set. I like to have kind of a follow-up with them. Like if they want to continue with me, we can. If there are a few things that they haven't quite gotten the hang of and they just want to keep, some sessions, we can space those out and like add those on to the end. But it's usually about 3 months. And I like to follow up with them, after about 60 or 90 days afterwards, just a kind of a tune up, just to see like how they're doing, make sure that everything is still going well for them and they don't have any obstacles or blocks or things haven't like gotten snowballing and avalanching again. And usually that's how it goes down. I do stay in touch with a lot of my clients too. And if they ever need like a spot session, just, hey, I'm feeling really off or whatever, we can set something up like that too. Because I really do. I'm very invested in the solution for them. I'm very invested in them getting out of burnout and eliminating it and avoiding it in the future.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much for having the conversation. We appreciate it. And again, I think this is very valuable and timely information.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tanya and Brian. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun. It was a really good time. I'm so glad that we got to do this, and I'm grateful to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.
Bye.